Hi, I'm John Lavrakis coming to you from Newport, Oregon in my workshop here. And I'm going to show you how I made these beautiful napkin rings. I call them All Is Well napkin rings. Made from a piece of wood from our tree in the backyard, our plum tree. I'm going to talk to you about the tools I used and the techniques, and then maybe you can make some too. Okay, let's get started. To make the napkin rings, I used a drill press, and I purchased a special 1.5-inch bore bit with mandrel, a belt and disc sander. I also used an oscillating drum sander, although that's optional, a miter saw, a band saw, a wood burning tool, and sandpaper strips. Okay, the first step is going to be to take your wood and cut off a chunk that you can work with. Now this piece has some cracks in it on one side. The other side is in good shape, no cracks. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut off a piece from the one end using my miter saw. So that came out okay. But in order to take the next step, what I need to do is to cut a piece so you get a good cylinder. So I'm going to cut off some edging here to flatten two sides. So basically what we want is right angles so that when we cut, we'll get a good parallel lines between this side and this side. So I've cut it so that it's a chunk about 3 inches high, maybe 2 inches high. That seems to be a good piece for me to work in to make my rings. Next I'm going to draw where I want the rings to be cut using a template. So let's look at that. Now to cut a ring with a hole that size, I've got a bit with a mandrel here that's 1.5 inches. That's the size I've used. So what I'm going to do is find the inside I said is 1.5 inches. The outside is 2 inches. So on my template here, I'm going to find a 2-inch circle and see if I can place where I'll draw the circle so that it comes on one side where I want it and on the other side. So let's start on this side since this is the rougher side to work from. So I'm going to examine the wood, see where it's a good spot to place this, and then I'm going to mark here, 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 and here. And I'll draw a circle. Okay, now I've got to find the center point, and that's done with a straight edge. I've got a simple straight edge here. Okay, and the center then is where we're going to drill a hole. Okay, I've chucked in the piece of wood so that the drill bit will come right down upon it, right into the center where it's expected. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this circle in the wood, and I'm going to cut the top, then I'm going to flip it over and then cut the bottom until I get cut all the way through. Now, in order to make sure that I drill from underneath correctly, I'm going to drill a hole right through the center, down through the bottom, and then I'll align my bit with the mandrel on that. And watch and you'll see that. Okay, now I've got the outer ring cut with a bore hole such as this, and we're going to now cut the other side of the wood to finish it off. I've got the piece mounted here so that when I bring the drill down the bit, it will go right through the hole. So I'm going to now cut the rest of it. Now, when we're done, we should have a nice hole like this, drilled where you can see the pencil lines here. And what we're going to do now is cut this down. Okay, I mentioned we're going to need a bandsaw. So here's my bandsaw. And what I'm going to do is cut off large pieces as close as I can to the pencil line, the pencil circle. But not to worry, not to get it down to a perfect circle, because we'll take care of that on the oscillating drum sander. But we're going to cut it now as close as we can. Okay, you can see it's getting a bit rounder. There's still some chunks on the side we're going to have to take off. Okay, I'm going to, since it's pretty close, I'm going to go ahead and begin to sand this now using my sander. Okay, here's my oscillating drum sander. I like it because it allows me to place the piece flat and then work it in, and I can see exactly what part is sanded, what part is not from above. Now, if you don't have a oscillating drum sander, you can also use just a standard sander like this one. You would just do it along the sides like this. And be very careful, just keep it on your plate so everything's level, and sand it right down to the line. You want to be as smooth as you can because you don't want this to be too rough. You want it to be very smooth. Now, a word about cutting down to this circle. You're making a napkin ring, so it doesn't have to be perfectly down to the circle. The most important thing is that it be round. So if you come just above the circle, that's okay. I think it'll be a very nice napkin ring. And we'll do a little bit of sanding at the end. But you want to get, during this phase, you want to get most of the wood, unnecessary wood, out of there and just leave a nice smooth surface. Also, as you work with this piece of wood, you might find little flaws in it. But that's not bad. That's what we call character. So it's going to give some character to your piece of wood. It's going to be a natural homemade piece. It's not a machine manufactured piece. It's one that you made. So it's okay to have a little bit of character in there, okay? Now, when you've got it all smooth, and this is feeling pretty smooth, we're now going to take steps to cut off the rings, so that we can make those rings. And here we go. Okay, so the next step is to take our cylinder and cut it into rings. And I like to do it one ring at a time. I will mark a ring, then go cut the ring. I'd like to make a few comments on making mistakes. When I do my woodshop activities, I'm okay with making mistakes. And if I'm taking on something brand new, I'll go ahead and plan to make mistakes so that I can learn certain skills. So when I did these rings, I found some pieces of wood that had cracks in them. So you can see a crack in there. But that's okay. I went ahead and worked with it to learn the skills of cutting the ring and burning in the wood and sanding and all. So I just plan to make little mistakes as I go, learn from those mistakes. So what I'll eventually get is a piece that I really like. But I've gone through a lot of pieces I don't care for to get there. So that's okay. Now, how to cut that ring. The way I used it was just get a piece of wood. I get a pencil, fairly sharp pencil, and then put the cylinder by it, put the piece down, the pencil down, and just rotate the cylinder against the pencil lead until I get a mark all the way around it. And so now I have a ring around the piece of wood, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that ring, and then we'll take a next step. Okay, now we're going to cut the ring, and I'm back at my bandsaw, and I'm going to go ahead and very carefully try to cut a ring out going against those pencil lines I just drew. And then if I'm careful, I'll have a fairly good ring, one that will have some defects to it, but that's okay, we'll sand those out. Okay, so here's my ring. Now it's not going to be perfect because I'm not perfect in cutting, but that's okay. I can sand this flat. Also, this piece now has a good side and it's got a bad side. The bad side I just cut. So I'm going to sand that down as well on my belt sander. Okay, so now I've got a piece of wood that's flat. I've got a ring that's flat, but it's still got some burrs on it, so I'm going to have to do some sanding on this. Now, I'm not going to go cut all the different pieces here. You know how to do that. So you're going to make the ring with your pencil and then cut the rings out and sand them down. I'll just continue on with this one ring to show you next steps. Okay, I noticed that this ring, as I feel around it, has a smooth area, but then there's a rough area right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use my oscillating drum sander to take that off. Okay, the next step is to sand the edges here and the inside, get a little bit smoother. What I'm going to use is what's called a multi-roll sand pack, which is a whole bunch of pieces of sandpaper. I'm just going to grab one that's fairly coarse, maybe a 240 grit, and work with that a second here. So I've cut off a good length here, maybe 8 inches. I'm going to take the ring and put it inside my wooden clamp here and just kind of lightly sand it. Working my way around, trying to get the edges off. I don't like too sharp of edges on a napkin ring, so I'm going to make it a little bit smoother. Now how about that? I've cracked a piece here. So I'm going to have to do a new ring to get it the way I like it. But that's what happens with real wood. Got a piece cracked. So at any rate, I'll continue on to show you the next steps. I'm going to come on the inside now. Get that sounded. Okay, it's looking good. There's still some rough areas here, so I'll get that. Gotta get it smooth. Now, I told you I might do a finer grit, which I can pull off here. Another piece. This is a 400 grit. Okay, another little trick I have is take a piece of wood. I've got a wooden stick. It's like a pencil, but there's no lead. And I'll just wrap my paper around it and just come on the inside. So what we're going to have now is a pretty smooth little piece of a ring of wood. So we're getting very close. What we're going to do next is to mark the lettering onto the napkin ring. It's a lettering of your choice. I choose the words all is well, and I'll show you how to do that. We're going to do it using a template and then a wood burning tool. So the first thing I've done is I've printed off the words that I want to use onto a sheet of paper. And then what you can do with these is you can cut them off like this. And then what you're going to do is tape them over your napkin ring. Actually, what I do is put that down and get him. Find the spot I want to place him and carefully line it up so that it's all on the wood and all level. So that when it transfers, it's going to be just where it belongs. Now, one method to use is carbon paper, and I'll show you some of that. Carbon paper is a paper that's got a black siding on it, and when you etch onto it, it will transfer the ink onto the piece of wood. What I did was I took the words all is well, and on the back, when I printed it, I printed a big black area. So when it printed on my inkjet printer, and I don't know if this will work with LaserJet, but with the inkjet printer, it put some ink here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this. And we do it by taking a pencil and very carefully marking where you had the letter right over the top of it. And I do it several times, each line, to try to transfer the ink. You want to take your time and you want to dig in so that there's a good transfer. By printing it off and not doing it freehand, and I'm not an artist, then you are sure to get a good quality transfer every time. You want a fairly hard pencil. You don't want that lead to break. And this is one of those techniques that the more you do it, the better you get. So if you have any bad pieces of wood, then do it first on those. Get your experience doing it. Then when you're done, you can take it off, and right on the wood, the lettering will be there. It's very hard to see, but it's a very faint lettering, and all I need is enough to be able to see it. And now I'm ready to burn. And I've got my wood burning tool. I bought it at the store. It's got a sharp edge to it. And what you're going to do is come down and burn off the letters that you've marked. And you got to be careful to just burn where you want it to burn. The tip will get very hot, and you just want to lay it down. And again, this is an area where if you practice it, over time you'll get better at it. Because once you've made a mistake, you've kind of got the mistake in there. So you want to be very slow about the process. The other thing that I'll do is at the bottom I'll put in my initials, just so people know it's mine. And it says I'm the one who made this ring. And so what you've got here is it burned in, all is well. And again, like I say, it takes technique, so be patient with yourself and work slowly. Okay, that's that. Our next step will be to finish the napkin rings, and what we want to do is apply a finish. What I've got is the Minwax gel stain. I'm using the cherry wood, which is number 607. And to do that, I just need to apply it using their instructions, what needs to be done. So you pull that off, you take the stain and put it on, spread it around. All over the ring. Their instructions are to put it on and let it sit for 3 minutes, and then wipe it all off. Pretty simple. Just want to make sure you get enough all over it. No spot is missed. You're welcome to experiment with whatever finish you want, and experimentation's good. That's what a lot of these broken pieces are for, to try out different things. In fact, one thing I'll do is, if I'm not sure about the finish, I'll try out multiple finishes. I'll get pieces of wood and put them all on, look at them, show them to my wife, say, what do you think? And before you know it, we'll have picked one we like, and that's what I go with. Okay, we're set. Let this guy sit here for 3 minutes, and we'll come back. Okay, our 3 minutes is up. So what we're going to do now is, they say to use a rag and clean off everything. Just wipe it all off. And then after it's all cleaned off, we're going to let it sit overnight so it has a good chance to dry. And then we'll be back and we'll then finish it with the putting a final coat of linseed oil on it. Well, we're here at the final phase, which is to apply the linseed oil, which I've purchased. It's a pretty simple process. Just put some onto a clean rag and wipe it on till the whole piece is covered with the oil. It'll cover over the finish that you put on, and the in the lettering. Okay, and when I'm done with it, I like to just hang it on a little rod here and let it dry out. So that should work. And clean up your mess, and we'll let this dry and we'll be back. Once it's dried out, you'll have a really nicely made napkin ring, just like this. Very lovely, isn't it? Thank you for coming and seeing this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have new ideas for making napkin rings that you can share with your loved ones.